We're going to continue turning standard form into vertex form. The only difference with today's is that we have a leading coefficient, so we have a 2 in the front. And that changes two different things. One is our first step. We're not leading off with finding our new C value. What we're doing is we're factoring out the leading coefficient. So in this case, it's 2. So we look at these two terms and we factor out a 2. Then what we do is we take this, which is our new B value after it's factored, we divide it by 2 and square it just like what we did before. Now, this is where there's a little bit of a deviation. When we have our new C value of 4, notice that we're adding 4, but on the other side, we're adding 8. And the reason that we're adding 8 is because the 4 is inside a parenthesis. Notice that outside the parenthesis is a 2. 2 times 4 gives us the 8. So that's why we're adding 8 on the left-hand side, because technically we're adding 8 on the right-hand side. We do the same thing that we did before. We're going to factor two numbers that multiply together give us 4, add up to negative 4, which is negative 2. And then what we do is we subtract the 8 to get our negative 7. So looking at our first example, first thing that we're going to do is we're going to factor out a 2. So we have y equals 2, and then we have x squared plus 2x. Then what we're going to do is we're going to find our new C value. We're going to take our B value, this B right here, divide it by 2 and square it. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. So on the right-hand side, we have x squared plus 2x plus 1. Once again, I'm adding the 1 from right here. That is going in. But on the other side, I'm adding a 2. And the reason why is because this 1 right here has a 2 in front of it. 2 times 1 gives me the 2. My next step is I'm going to factor. Two numbers that multiply together give me 1. Add up to 2 would be 1 and 1. So I have 2 and then x plus 1 squared, and then we have plus 1. And then in order to get the y by itself, I'm going to subtract the 2. And y equals 2, x plus 1 squared minus 1. Let's look at the next one. I look at these two terms and I see that they have a 3 in common. So my first step is to factor out a 3. Then I'm going to find my new C value. I'm going to take my B value, which is negative 6. I'm going to divide it by 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to square it. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Squared gives me 9. I'm going to take the x squared minus 6x plus 9. That's in parentheses. I put the negative 8 outside. Now remember, I have the 9 that I added, but since the 9 is in parentheses, outside the parentheses a 3, 3 times 9 gives me 27. Then I'm going to factor. Two numbers that multiply together give me 9, add up to negative 6. Once again, if I'm doing it correctly, it's the same, negative 3, negative 3. So I have 27 plus y equals 3, and then x minus 3 squared minus 8. I'm going to subtract the 27, and that gives me y equals 3, x minus 3 squared minus 35. For letter C, they have a 5 in common. So I factor out the 5, and I get x squared minus 10x, and then plus 7. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the negative 10. I'm going to divide it by 2. Remember, this is my b value. And then I'm going to square it. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Squared is 25. I have x squared minus 10x plus 25, and then I'm adding the 7. Now remember, I added the 25, but because the 25 is in parentheses and outside the parentheses of 5, 5 times 25 is 125. So I'm adding a 125 on the other side. Then what I have to do is I have to factor it. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply together, give me 25, and add up to negative 10. Once again, if we're doing this correctly, it should be the same number. So in this case, it's negative 5 and negative 5. So I have x minus 5 squared and then plus 7. And my last step is I'm going to subtract the 125. And that gives me y equals 5, x minus 5 squared minus, then that would be 1/18.